still be down 98%. Still, does AIG selling at 50 bucks a share tell us the recovery train is going full steam ahead? Or does the deficit number of $9 trillion signal the recovery train will come to a screeching halt? We have another panel of bulls and bears tonight. First, our bulls. Joel Miller, who is chief strategist for Wall Street Capital, Dan North, chief economist at Euler Hermes, and our bears, Paul Schatz, president of Heritage Capital, and Peter Schiff, president of Euro Capital. Peter, I think we got an inkling from the last segment what you think about AIG at 50. I want a quick read from the others on whether they think this stock at these levels mean anything. Paul, we're going to start with you.
I don't mean, keep in mind, they reverse split at 1 for 20. So had they not done that, which is a psychologically great move, the stock's still a penny stock. They owe the government up to $180 billion. Will they ever repay it? No. To me, the stock is worth nothing. Could it go higher? Of course. There could be a short squeeze. Again, there could be some manipulation, but for me, it's dead money.
Okay, Joel, what about you?
Well, believe it or not, I'm still very bullish on the economy, but I have to agree in this case. I don't think there was anything fundamentally changed in the structure of AIG in order to change their position and make this stock run up the way it is. I think it's a lot of speculation, a lot of fear, and speculation. I think ultimately what's going to happen is as the mom and pop buyers start chasing this stock, the people who got in early are going to get out and we're going to see it fall. You know, Dan, one of the reasons people said the stock rallied so much is that the new CEO said he's going to take his time to sell assets, and he also reached out to one of the company's former CEO, Hank Greenberg, a sign that many people considered bullish for AIG. Do you see any positives in this stock at this level?
Well, I think if you're looking at AIG and you're thinking about investing in it, you want to ask yourself, do I want to buy shares of the U.S. government? Because it's really the U.S. government that's, that owns that company. And I think the answer is probably no, because private business has the mandate to create value, whereas government has the mandate to redistribute that value. So I think it's probably unattractive given who's owning 80% of the shares. Okay,
that actually is a nice segue to the next thing we want to talk about, given that AIG wouldn't be where it was if it wasn't for government help. For that matter, neither would Citi or Bank of America, and maybe some of the other banks that have actually repaid any TARP money. Net, were bailouts a good thing or a bad thing? And we're going to start with Peter on this one.
Well, they were a bad thing any way you look at it. First of all, there's no constitutional authority for the government to be bailing out these companies. Number two, it sets a terrible precedent for moral hazard. You punish the successful to prop up the unsuccessful. And I think the bailouts have basically interfered with a genuine recovery. We need to restructure our economy. In order to have capital better allocated, a lot of businesses need to fail. Many of the companies that were bailed out and propped up should have failed. Instead, we're diverting more resources away from other sectors of the economy that really need to expand in order to generate a lasting recovery. So what we're doing is delaying the pain. We're going to turn this recession into a depression. We're making the same mistakes of Hoover and Roosevelt. Okay, Dan, just quickly, I want a rebuttal from the bull side. I mean, isn't there an argument to be made that if there wasn't a bailout, we'd be in far worse shape for far longer period of time than we are right now?
I'm afraid I really agree with that. That was a very scary time, and I think when Lehman Brothers failed, suddenly the world came to an end pretty much as far as the financial markets were concerned, and I think it certainly could have spiraled much worse. I do have to agree that in the regular operating of a capitalist economy, you do have to let companies die, otherwise the capital goes to the wrong people. But that was a time when we needed to save companies, I think.
Okay, we're running out of time. I want to get to two issues very quickly. So I'm going to start with Paul on this one. There was an op-ed in the New York Times today by Paul Krugman, the economist, saying deficits are actually a good thing near term. Longer term, he said they're worrisome but not catastrophic. What's your take on that?
Well, sure. In recessionary times, you have to run deficits. I mean, think about it. Tax receipts go down. The government's going to spend more money. They're normal. You can argue whether they're okay in the short term. Long term, I don't agree. If we're going to run these $9 and $10 trillion long-term debts and then it's going to continue to spiral up, we're mortgaging a half a generation. It's bad for everything all around. It absolutely must end.
Okay, yeah, Joel, I'm sorry. Joel, I want to ask you one last question. This on the banks, because we see an increase of banks on the critical list. How worried should the economy be about this? Because if you look at the markets, it doesn't appear that they're that worried about a banking system that is growing increasingly fragile again.
Well, you know, I think we're going to be okay there. The big thing is that we're kind of going through this cycle again what happens, you have a lot of banks fail, you have just these big mega banks, and then the small business owner is not going to be able to get the financing that they need to continue to grow, and you're going to have small community banks come back into the marketplace. So the biggest thing is that I disagree with the comments of the banks failing. They shouldn't fail, mainly because the bigger issue is the consumer. If the consumer is scared and fearful, they will not infuse capital back in the economy. That's going to run us down the
You
hole.
don't infuse
Okay,
capital in the economy by spending. We want to scare the consumers out of this reckless spending. They need to save money.
I understand
and we don't want to encourage it. It just shows you the
consumers doing that now anyway. They
but we don't want to do that. And we don't want. We want to shrink. We want to shrink government spending too. They ought, you know, it shows you they give out Nobel prizes to anyway. When
All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. We want to thank you for your time tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. Next up on CNBC Reports, we're going to be talking quant jocks. Hear from the people.